If you've ever wondered how I'm able to output so many videos, to be so prodigious, but at the same time to have long videos and deep discussions with dives and tangents and come up with topic after topic after topic and then keep moving to new games and going to other ones and being an analyst and being a guy who's almost a comedian, talk show host, individual videos, silly stuff on Twitter, appear on other people's channels, be on like duo shows with others, behind the scenes consult, talk to players, help them get in the team. So if you're wondering how I do all that, you're going to think, man, you must need a lot of energy. Where's the thing? It's not just because I had Game of Subs. Spoiler, I was doing a lot of that even before Game of Subs. I did it even a lot, but anyway, I used to drink bad energy drinks and rubbish and just loads of coke and stuff. So what I will say is this. Game of Subs has made it a bit easier. It's helped me a little bit. It's given me that nice energy release. It's also keto friendly, so I don't get the spike. I don't think, I would like more sugar. I have another drink. Famously, if you noticed, you'll drink water when you're thirsty. You'll drink other drinks if they have sugar in, just because they have the sugar in. You'll think you're thirsty, but it's more your brain going, more of that, more of that, more of that. I want a little high. It's like a little cocaine high. Better keep going back. Little dab. That's what people are doing with the drinks, aren't they? So what I would say is this. If you tried all the other energy drinks, some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them the flavour's nice, but it is a bit dodgy in it. It's definitely nothing natural in there. These just taste nice and smooth. They have a nice flavour profile. They start out a bit subtle. They have a nice middle body. Then they just go at the end. There's nothing crazy. There's a few flavours that are a bit wild, like blue raz, some of the sour apple type ones, but I like the ones like the dragon fruit punch, the ones that are a little bit more chill, citrus lemonade. It's got a bit of a tang. It's kind of a bit refreshing, actually. If you want to try some, 10% off your order with the code Thorin, THORIN, at gamersubs.gg. Now, on Tuesday, it was announced by Evil Geniuses via their CEO, Nicole LaPointe-Jameson. Danny, who interestingly, by the way, as an aside, is one of those people who's picked like a real first name as his alias, but his actual name isn't Daniel or Danny, it's Kyle, which is a bit strange, but that actually does happen quite often. Like, if you don't know the legendary Counter-Strike player from Ukraine called Edward, his actual first name's like Ion, like sort of John or something like that, or Ivan. I think it's John if you translate it into, I don't know, whatever you'd call their language in that way, the Cyrillic in that sense or whatever. Now, when this announcement was made, Danny, the team's starting ADC and a very hyped player for the team, will not be competing this weekend at the LCS Summer Split Finals. As a result, they're going to play without him and use an emergency sub. Now, this is kind of wild because on Sunday, they won their lower bracket match against Team Liquid, one of the most, it might be the most expensive roster to ever play in LCS. It's full of top players, and it has the people everyone calls the LCS GOAT, Bjergsen, there. And they won not only a series against them, it was a 5-game banger, and in the 5th game, banger for them at least, in terms of like the back and forth, and in the 5th game, they did come through clutch, and they did do really well. And it was, even believe it or not, it was even Giorgio who sort of carried some of the fights. So they were set to face 100 Thieves in the lower bracket final. There's a whole thing there, but if you don't know from brackets from back in the day, where it's like some people call it the consolidation final, and then the one before that's the lower final, that 4th place match. But I just call them all the lower final now because I've looked colloquially, people do that. Kind of like in Counter-Strike, people say no scope, even though obviously it's actually a quick scope in most cases, isn't it? So, listen, they're going to face 100 Thieves to determine who will then play Cloud9 for the LCS title. By the way, EG are the reigning LCS champions. They just won't be able to take their full championship roster to these matches. Now, the fact that he had to not play is in itself a topic. Like, what's going on with that? You could also, obviously, if this was a drama show, there would be all sorts of speculation. You can make mad statements, but I would say that's a topic in itself. But I think the bigger issues that I want to address, actually, beyond obviously for him individually and for his team, there's certainly some big issues, but the bigger issues for the context of LCS, for these matches, the competitive integrity, what it means for the league, the status of the league commissioner, what precedent this could set going forwards, and how people build teams, what loopholes exist. You have to look at the claims that were made, the context of how EG marketed those players, and whether the substitute who will be replacing them should even be allowed to compete in these matches. These are the topics I would like to explore, hence the title. But you'll notice it's a question. I wouldn't put that question mark on there, by the way, if it was just certain and it was ironclad. But I do think it's a question you have to ask, as you'll see when I lay out the story. So this is enormous news. It is hard to think of a comparable situation due to him choosing to sit out or feeling incapable, or his team saying you can sit out, that's fine. Sure, Thorin in spring split of last year, including, or maybe it was just in the playoffs if you remember, and then some of the summer split games before the playoffs had to sit out with health issues, right? That happened, okay, it's happened before. But even so, Like, I guess that was sort of similar in the Team Liquid run, but Team Liquid was also a bigger squad with a lot bigger, better players. All the roles could have, in theory, carried, so a lot of people would say it's fine, and as a result, they were still able to do very well. Then, I would say the major comparison for me would be, obviously, Double Lift. Now, if people don't know, this is a very serious topic right now. 7 days prior to the Season 8 Spring Final, where Team Liquid was supposed to play against 100 Thieves, you remember it was the first split of the franchise in an LCS, Doublelift's older brother attacked his father and mother. His mother died, and his father went to hospital, but based on the news stories I was able to find, later recovered. Now, the key distinction here is that Doublelift played anyway. It was actually just the final he had to play, to be fair. He didn't have to play the match before. Won, and obviously was hailed as a hero. It's kind of like an epic moment in LCS history. I might even say that would be what you'd make a documentary about if he was willing to be part of it, right? What incredible thing to do. It is up there with like Brett Favre scoring all those touchdowns. Was it the Raiders? I forget who it was against. Or Chiefs or something. I think it was the Raiders. Yeah, did an amazing job, didn't he? Probably wasn't any of those teams. Probably the 49ers or something. I'll just keep saying NFL teams. I'll get right one minute. I'll stop doing that. No, but the thing is, I'll go back to that later, because spoiler, I'm not saying you have to be like Doublelift or Doublelift's better and you're bad. No, there's none of that jazz. You'll see later on, I've actually got a very interesting take on that whole topic. But the significance for Evil Geniuses is where this is really interesting and should be huge, but it might be huge for the wrong reason. As in, Danny and Jojo are the two NA talents that they've gambled the team on. Because let's be real, they play the two traditional carry roles. You aren't going to know there's 3 though. In NA there's 2. In NA, you play weak side top, you play tanks, you play through the mid and the ADC. That's why, who has all the championships? Bjergsen and Doublelift. Even Jensen has a fefew, but it's mainly Bjergsen and Doublelift. Spoiler, it isn't a top player with like 10 championships, is there? So, the imports even are the other roles, like top and jungle. By the way, I will say, even though they're the carry roles at mid and ADC, the jungle is actually considered the best player in this team and has just won MVP of the league. By the way, he was MVP of the European League as well last year, in summer as well. And the top is a former world champion and legendary player who's been a part of many championship sides in LCS and has repeatedly gone to semis and finals, like seemingly every split of his career. Not really, but seemingly every split. So let's be real. EG invested a lot into Danny. You could say essentially they invested this year into him and maybe even their future for what they might have done if they had some of the short-term people like Jizuki and Niski and Doublelift and Jensen, all those guys. So remember, they didn't even just invest now in this team into him. He came up in their EG amateur team called Prodigies. Now you're going to go, no, you mean academy team. No, he was in the amateur team. They have an academy team as well. They have a full spectrum approach there. And so in 2020 and 2021, he was playing in their amateur team and then came straight to the LCS team. So for Summer Split last year, I don't actually know if he came straight, but Summer Split last year, he joined the main team and the team finished 3rd in the regular split, but they missed out on Worlds and they finished 5th to 6th in the playoffs. Now, he was the rookie of the split. By the way, they had quite a clever way of sort of working him into the team at that point in time because they had Jizuki and he liked to roam top and he's a crazy player and a mad... Well, people thought obviously he was a bit of an into or whatever. Like, they would just allow this guy to sort of be protected a little bit. For this year, they really, really invested in him because they doubled down, not just by keeping him, but gambling on trading out Jizuki, like a potential MVP candidate in the regions he's played in, for Jojo Pion, an inexperienced 17-year-old rookie who actually doesn't even mainly come from League, he comes from Fortnite. That's crazy. That's like really saying my eye test works, my understanding of potential works. I'm willing to take you over something very good already. That's like, forget the bird in my hand. I know there are 2 amazing birds in that bush. That's wild. But they went for it and it was obviously working, obviously, right? It was actually mega. If you don't know, that's actually an insane move in the sense that no rookie mid and ADC combo has ever won LCS. Obviously, you cannot count the first LCS split or call Reginald a rookie. He was an LCS rookie because everyone was playing their first split. He wasn't a rookie at all. He was one of the most experienced League of Legends players ever at that point in time. So the team did it. They made history. They won the spring split, including impressive sweeps of Cloud9, Team Liquid, and 100 Thieves back to back to back. Those are the other best teams in the LCS. Their only series loss was an upper bracket 3-2 on Team Liquid side, loss to Team Liquid, super team, and that was in the upper bracket first round, their first playoff series ever for Jojo. This team was able to cover the weaknesses of the rookies at times, to use experience elsewhere to set the team up and shore up, like where decisions might be made poorly, or Danny might int in lane, or Jojo might just do some crazy 1v1 attempt. It might not work always. They had smart drafting, they had comps that you could tell people knew how to pilot and at what point in the game to do what, and they'd been given an understanding, and actually their macro late could be good, and they could team fight very well late. By the way, that meant that it wouldn't matter if Danny died in lane, they could overcome it even. There was sort of like, they were getting the Death Nami buff in that sense. You can overcome a death or two, you know what to do, and then you get him scaled up later, he carries a team fight, doesn't he? He has all those games on Zeri where he was just popping off. So then the team went to MSI, and they even won a best of one against SKT. Well, technically it's T1 now, isn't it? Yeah, that's right, Joe Marsh. It's T1. We're not talking about SKT. But the problem is they lost every other game to the major regions, failed to make the playoffs, and so a lot of people obviously memed on them, even though they'd gone too hard on the BO1. But okay, people understandably, though, pointed out they are rookies, they are experienced. They're not really going to do mega at their first one, right? Now, sure, yes, Faker, yes, Perks, yes, some players are amazing, even out the gate. It Perks, by the way, only domestically, not even internationally. So I would say, like, it's a mixed bag in that sense. You can't always know on the first one, and they obviously weren't even supposed to really be there, right? If Team Liquid was the super team, you'd think they'd have come second, and Team Liquid would be at MSI and they'd be working for Worlds. So this was supposed to be the split where EG proved themselves legit, but now it ends up being the one where they could actually have just proved themselves number one team in NA and maybe have made a mini dynasty with some rookies. That would be amazing. Team Liquid had the super team still. You'd expect Bjergsen's going to get better, right? He's going to get back to MVP form. Cloud9 got rid of all the problem players, brought back former champion Jensen, and then put Sven to support. Okay, some of that's questionable, but if it ever works, imagine how skilled the team will be. And TSM upgraded their roster and got an internationally good mid for along with Skreer and Maple, right? EG looked like the best team for most of the summer split. Again, they showed a strong understanding of the meta. Their drafting was good. They knew how to cover weaknesses and win as a team, especially late game. But then trouble stuck. And the story becomes very relevant to this topic of Danny subbing out, because you're going to see how it foreshadows it. EG started to lose a few of the big marquee games. If it's in the NBA or NFL, this would have been the televised game. And so people who only watch that game would actually think EG sucks, even though they were the best team in the league at the time, because they kept losing to key rivals. Week 5, they lost to 100 Thieves, who were supposed to be in trouble and figured out at the time and lost in the meta as an identity. Week 7, they lost to Team Liquid, a messy team, still lacking a clear identity, but packed with star players, fair enough. Now, that still allowed EG to finish first. They didn't lose many games in the whole split, but the problem is, just like a rogue split, you look at the big ones and you question, what will they do in the playoffs? So when you have to play best of 5 against that team. And you could also obviously question, even though they're number 1, are they actually the favourite if they've been losing some of these big games? Now, by the way, at that time, Cloud9 wasn't a relevant contender at all. So it was mainly just Team Liquid 100 Thieves and an outside chance for like a CLG run. As you saw, they almost beat a couple of these big teams. In the upper bracket, EG immediately lost to Cloud9, 1-3, when they played them. That kind of sucks, right? Cloud9 hadn't looked that great in their previous game against CLG. But they beat TSM, the 7th place team or whatever it was. Not a good team. Team barely won any games. In 5 games in the lower. So you see already, this is a way worse split than before. They were sweeping the teams in the lower bracket last time. They're going 5 games, 4 games. Like, what's going on? Then they beat TL in 5 games. By the way, massive series though. Then we come to this scenario. The problem is, even in the playoffs before he decided not to play, Danny's play had fallen off. He was having issues with his champion pool. He had Zeri, because he had all his pentakills, right? That was basically his one key champ. And because it's also one of the strongest champs in the meta, everyone just wouldn't let him have it. C9 picked it away. Didn't want to let him have it. Handshake should have been Siver. He looked bad on it. TL was doing similar things. He lost both games he did play on Siver, by the way. That's supposed to be the one you play if you can't play Zeri, or if they get the Zeri, or they won't let you have Zeri, and they'll only pick Zeri. Then teams began... His team had to start playing him on Seraphine. That's right. Summer Split 2022, everyone, from other regions. And Misfortune and Jinx. You know, these aren't even champions in the other regions. They definitely wouldn't be high in your draft rotation. So that suggests, by the way, your ADC's in real trouble and you just can't play the meta champion. Something's happened to his performance or his mindset or whatever's going on. His game's fallen off. None of these are the strong meta bot laners in Asia/LEC, by the way. He was even pulling out like Ezreal and Senna. But you know what's funny? In Europe, the support will play the Senna often. I wonder what that even implies about what they thought of what he was doing in this team and the kind of the problems he was having. So I actually do think, by the way, if Danny had played, obviously without all this situation of whatever's happened to him mentally, I do think he actually already would have been a liability to EG in their matches, and especially in draft. If you look at the 2 teams he would have had to play potentially, 100 Thieves had last year the best bot lane, and FBI, their ADC, plays the meta completely. He plays Zeri and Siver and Lucian and Kalista, and he even has Aphelios as a pocket pick because he was always like an Aphelios main. Cloud9 has Berserker, maybe the most skilled player in the LCS, maybe the best player, although obviously provides the MVP, and certainly the best ADC. By the way, he is a monster on Xerxes. You can't even let him have it. But he also plays everything else. Siva, Aphelios, Callista. He even plays the Neela and the Draven. So you would get draft gapped against these teams, made to look like a fool having to pick the Seraphine and Serum. And you would get absolutely booty blasted. You can't block these guys out. You can't ban them out. You can't stop them doing it. It would be very, very hard, in my opinion, for EG. I don't think they could have won either of these series. I think they were going to finish third place, which is not to imply this is why this happened, but it's just essentially to say, when I later point out what they're changing, that's where I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable about what's going on right now. It's not like they could just change to Impact and go hard carry every series. He can do the odd game like that. They tried to do that in some past series. And in fact, I'll even take what Jat said on a LoL Esports point, like 10 points about the finals or something. And this is a quote from Jat, one of the most respected LCS analysts of all time, one of my favourite casters. Throughout the regular season, EG completely funneled their ADC Danny, completely, so that he could have all the gold and could carry team fights. In the last 2 playoff series, EG was putting Danny almost exclusively on Seraphine and Misfortune and relying heavily on Impact and Jojo to carry games. So I think EG was supposed to finish third this time around. And making Worlds and beating TL, okay, yeah, that's a claim to fame, right? That's what would happen, right? Yeah, no repeat crown. They wouldn't have had that, but they would have won the first split and whatever. Just didn't happen because your player was out of the meta this split. It's not the end of the world. But then the news about Danny came out that he's not going to play at all. So let's have a quick look at the statement that was made by Nicole Jameson or Jameson. Apologies on that one. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know how it's pronounced. So let's have a look here. Let's pull this up. So they basically just say, like, he won't be competing. It takes a great deal of courage and self-awareness to recognise when the right time is to step away from something you've worked so hard at achieving, especially when you care so deep, blah, 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 blah. Okay, to focus on mental health. This guy's played an integral role. We're more than an organisation. We're a family. I'll remember that when you cut people. And you just wreck people in the off-seasons. We'll battle together. By the way, where's my mate Jizuki? What happened to that family? We battle together, win together, lose together, and support each other through every situation. Fair enough. Cal's a part of the family. We'll continue to support him. Then, they ask fans not to sort of wreck him and stuff like, like support him and all that jazz. So it's all good. The only problem is just the words mental health are supposed to just cover everything. That's it. Now, true, you could just say, you don't have to say that, you're not obliged to. It's nobody else's business. Yes. But the bigger vacuum you leave, the more people are going to speculate. That's human nature. I'm sorry, it just is. So that's definitely the attention/media economy. And then people who either wanted this guy to play or don't understand the mental health problems or don't know what it's like to be a pro or think, well, double I played or fake I played or one of those, they're also going to probably flame you. And they might even be fans of yours in some messed up sense. So I understand it sucks, but there's nothing really in that. That was just a bunch of waffle. That was just some middle management nonsense, right? What was that all about? So now let's look at the LCS rules, right? Because so far I've yet to actually tell you, I've hinted at that there's a special sub scenario coming up. So let's just go and have a look at the LCS rules, shall we? What are the LCS rules exactly? So the rule for emergency subs, wait a minute, emergency sub, emergency, okay. That's weird. Why are we looking at emergency sub rules? But, well, you know what? We'll get to that in a second. Let's read the emergency rules first. So first things first, you'll just note something. The section here that emergency rules in, it's section 4, which is weekly roster rules. Weekly is the regular season, as you'll see by the context, right? Because you come down here, go to 4.5, emergency substitutions. In the event of an emergency prior to the scheduled start of a match, a team will be given up to 2 hours to produce an eligible substitute on site if a replacement can be found. Now, why would it say give it up to 2 hours? Because obviously they're expecting it's something like someone gets injured or doesn't arrive on time or they just feel sick at the time. They're not really expecting this scenario where you could say days in advance, like maybe a week in advance. I'm just not going to play. In fact, I'm not going to play at all. Nothing will get me to play. I won't be there. It doesn't matter what changes. Yeah, that's a very unique scenario, right? As far as I can tell, this is for when potentially 2 hours or 3 hours before a game, you just have an issue and you're like, I have to replace someone quickly and my other subs aren't here or they can't get here. Because here's the thing we're going to get to. Let's get into this. An interesting detail. For the playoffs, here's how it works. I'll just double check something actually. One other thing I want to point out here is this, which is when you go to here, weekly roster, look, it says like you make your team, starting lineups. You have 5 starting lineup players, okay, that constitutes starting roster. Rosters are considered public at the submission deadline. If a team fails to submit a valid roster by the deadline, team will be penalised, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. It says there, 5 starters, right? Why doesn't it say anything about subs? Why doesn't it say you have 2 subs? Oh, because that's not the way it works in regular season. In regular season, you can like move like any of your academy players up if you do it at the right time and depending on the week or something. The emergency substitute thing there is just if your subs cannot come and someone can't play. That is clearly the context of these rules based on the section, the subsection, or what comes before in that section. Now that's going to be very relevant in a minute, okay? No one else is bringing this stuff up, because they all feel super scared to bring this up because it's going to be implied, yeah, you hate him or you think mental health isn't real or you said they could be cheating. They're going to do all that. But I ain't afraid. Yeah, I ain't scared, homie. I'm your Huckleberry. So let's get into this, okay? Because when it comes to the playoffs, you have 2 substitutes. That's pretty generous, right? You must register both subs at the beginning of the playoffs. You can't just register someone now. Now, that's obviously to prevent crazy signings in the middle of the playoffs or ones to just improve one position, to stop people throwing and then joining another rival team that beat them, to stop people joining teams when they're out of the playoffs but they were another LCS team. You can see why that needs to be in place to stop really ridiculous stuff, that you have to do it at the beginning and then emergencies are only for emergencies. Now, here's what you might not know, or you might, but people didn't mention one detail that was very conspicuous that it doesn't get mentioned. So EG had 2 subs. They were Tomio from their academy team. He is their jungler in the academy team. And there was their coach, Turtle, not Wild Turtle. He's like a Brazilian guy, I think. Now, here's what's interesting. A random detail. Turtle actually also played jungle, apparently when he was some sort of a pro in Brazil. So a bit silly to have 2 subs from the same role. But now I'm about to bring up a point I haven't heard anyone mention. Why was one of your substitutes, you can only have 2 when there are 5 roles in the game, and you have 2 rookies. I mean, technically to me, Danny's a rookie, except 3 splits is nothing. Why wouldn't you have mid and ADC as the particular rookies, right? Maybe their logic was, well, if Inspired is a problem and has to go home or a visa issue, that could be an issue, right? But this is the point. The Tomio one's fine. You had a jungle sub. Okay, turn out to be the jungler. Having the coach is bullshit. And here's why I'm going to get into it. Because you're just, as far as I can speculate, EG is doing that to have an extra man in the room backstage at LCS to discuss things with the team, have an extra coach in there. Maybe he's even a jungle coach. I don't even know on that angle. I don't know who these guys are, just a coach, right? That means they don't just have Peter Dunn. They can have another person in there because they're going to burn a spot on it, because you don't think you're ever going to use these subs, do you? So basically, they found a little loophole and were exploiting it. And by the way, considering they're one of the best coach teams in the league with amazing draft, blah, 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 I'm sure it was helping them. That sounds like a great move, right? That sounds like something that could really help you between games. Maybe give you some insight, extra pair of eyes, another head. That sounds great. So you gained an advantage by not having a real sub. That's very relevant. Because if that was a real sub, we wouldn't need an emergency sub. In fact, why is there an emergency sub? You've got 2 subs, put one of them in the game. Yeah, but he doesn't play DC. Nobody in the LCS made this player have to step down. That doesn't mean he shouldn't or he can't, but it means if he does, there will be a consequence. At a minimum, his team's going to be lacking him. And in this case, they wouldn't even have an ADC to play with. That has to be factored in, right? But instead, it just happened anyway. And somehow, we got to a world where actually you can have an emergency sub. Because you talk 2 jungle subs and one's a coach. I'll give a little aside. If people know in CSGO, this was being done at the majors. They made a thing where you could register a coach. But what people would do was, they'd have the main team and then they would like compete, and they would do it so they'd have 3 out of 5 to have this slot in the qualifier. And then they just, right before the game, sub out one of the players for the coach. Spoiler, it wasn't ever a coach, it was just another player. And that was a way to get through the loophole of not having the 3 players but get the same spot. It's basically what teams like, I think it was someone did it with Kirby. I think it was like whatever that mixed team with like Kirby and AZ and those people. They were doing it to get into the, I assume, from like a North slot or something silly like that. So yeah, anyway, that's happened in games before. And this is not quite semi-common, I would say, for people to exploit loopholes. But that's the point. You then want sympathy later and to act like, well, I'm in an impossible situation. No, you also put yourself in an impossible situation with the subs. You must acknowledge that. If you don't, I would consider you disingenuous / a liar / I would be very open to the idea you are trying to actively cheat. So I would hope, if they were pressed with this, they're not going to speak about it, that they would actually acknowledge, yeah, that is a bit messed up, isn't it? So, then we come to this scenario, right? Is there an emergency substitution clause? You just saw it earlier, right? Show you it again. It was at the bottom of the weekly roster rules thing, which I've always shown you has nothing about the 2 subs, because that's not the way that works anyway, as far as I know. Let's see. See, it says there, an event of emergency, blah, 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 it can be found, right? Well, here's an interesting thing, and let's get into it. Because it did say there, it does say elsewhere somewhere, that it was like up to league officials to determine the emergency. I wonder if it actually went past the rules on the next page. I missed a bit there. But basically, the leagues get to determine what an emergency is, because obviously that's quite a vague statement, right? What's an emergency? My player isn't good enough. Like, I don't want him to play. What would count as an emergency? Presumably something really serious that you cannot avoid this, and it's so unlikely. It's just seems very implausible you would cheat, right? So then they got an emergency sub, and the emergency sub is Kauri, I hope that's how his name said, a Turkish player from EG Academy, who is an ADC, so he's going to play the role, but he wasn't a registered playoff sub. Now, as I said, under the weekly roster part of the rulebook, it's implied that's the regular season. This is playoffs. So the same section mentioning the 5 players, nothing about subs. Well, of course, because you can sub Academy. So that doesn't seem like that is the emergency clause. This seems like there wasn't a proper emergency clause, or at least it wasn't written in the right section contextually for the playoffs. It sounds like you get your 2 subs in the playoffs, and that's all you get. And this is that potentially fuckery by Riot. I'm not blaming EG. I do blame them for exploiting that loophole and then getting scuppered when you've bragged about your rookies. But I think it's Riot and the commissioner. That's what I want to talk about right now. So here's one thing that's already super suspicious. There's no news about this on LOL Esports. Guys, it's the championship weekend. EG might win the championship and go back to back. You're not going to mention the Danny guy you've been bragging about all split long and raving about. You don't even do an article mentioning him. What he did get mentioned in was Jack's article, as I just referenced earlier. That's it. Now, there was no statement on any website, as far as I can tell, from Jackie Felling, the new LCS commissioner as of earlier this year. She just made statements on, I think, Twitter and Reddit. What? No website, not right, nothing. That's very suspicious. Now, I'll show you what she said on Reddit, though. On Reddit, she said, let's see. So someone said about the emergency substitution clause in 4.5. So it's past this then, okay. Yes, I just missed this part. League officials will determine if an event qualifies as an emergency. So essentially it's up to them if it is an emergency. Now, obviously this guy agrees, but we're not going to read that. We're going to go to Jackie Felling, which is below. And she says, yes, I can confirm that the LCS has supported an emergency substitution due to mental health. For privacy reasons, I don't think it's appropriate to comment on the specifics, but we have verified the nature of this emergency and have notified the competing teams. Then she just says the whole thing about mental health, basically. And actually on Twitter, she was also talking about that. But okay. Not really relevant in this case, but it's a separate topic. She's addressing that as well. Way too little there. A very small paragraph, and it really doesn't explain anything. She just sort of says, I'm not going to explain anything. You don't even explain what happened with the rules. She just says that, yeah, they've supported emergency. She makes it sound almost like this is a real thing. This rule exists. Now, this is where it gets very suspicious, guys. Because first of all, she confirms there's an emergency sub, but doesn't explain why you get an emergency sub when seemingly no one else ever could have, and it doesn't seem like it was in the rules. And, also, doesn't explain why the sub can't just be Tommy or Turtle. You notice there's no addressing of that. There's not even addressing it. Well, it wouldn't be fair to make someone from a different role. No, they don't. They just don't address it. That's what makes it look like LCS is in cahoots on this scenario. Or LCS is just the one doing this and they wanted EG to just get a chance to have a performance. I don't know what's going on. This is wild. This is wild, the lack of information. That's not the commissioner's job. A commissioner's job is to take questions from the press, to make public statements, and to address what's going on. How about the 5 Ws, the when, where, what, why, and who? Can we know it all? No? I'm going to say the magic words mental health, and that means you can't question anything. Not even the rules or the commissioner, why you're applying them that way. Mental health, mental health. Do you hate people with mental health? Mate, if someone has cancer, are we just going to make a totally different rule and make a super extraordinary rule? Because then it turns out they're going to die. Well, they better have a better player in case they die so they could see them win the chat. What are you talking about? It's rules. That's not the way the rules work. That's not the type of head you want at all. You want a calm, rational head making these decisions. What the hell's going on? I don't know this person. They don't seem like an antagonistic person, which is quite cool from Riot. Normally they are dickheads like that. This person seems pretty fine. Seems like a chill person. Obviously they care about people. I just don't find this to be like professional commissioner behaviour. Just posted on Reddit and Twitter about it. No official statement. What's your job? To make official statements and be the commissioner and explain why you made decisions. You're not some dictator. We're not just your slaves who have to do what you say. We can question you and tell you what, if you don't tell us, we can speculate. Yeah, that's sort of the way the world works. So she confirms it all, right? And then says they have verified claims. They have verified the nature of the emergency. What? Like, yeah, sure, you could have some sort of a psych evaluation, I guess, or maybe an incident's happened with him, or you know, I mean, who knows? Maybe something's happened with a family member or something's happened elsewhere, and it's like, who can know what's going on? The problem is, who can know what's going on? Like, how could Riot confirm that in a way that I would allow them to potentially change the rules? I'm not certain, but it seems like it contextually. How could they confirm to be able to essentially just go, this rule book, that didn't count because he's got mental health problems? What? I'm sorry, you're going to need a lot more than that. Now, you don't have to tell us, but if you don't, we can just assume you might be cheating. Is this game 6 of the Kings versus the Lakers in 2002 playoffs? Are you the NBA refs? Have you determined that the Lakers do need 1 million free throws and that you should call every phantom foul? Come on, man. And I'm a Kobe fan, but I don't care. I'll point that was BS. Now, the Game 7 win was legit, but that Game 6 one was a disgrace. Guess what? NBA seems like they wanted Lakers to make the finals, didn't they? It's weird how that works. A league wanted something to happen, so they just did what they had to do, breaking the rules potentially. Now, when you do that, you don't say anything. You basically say, I'm not even going to say anything. You actually encourage speculation because you're claiming it's serious enough to warrant a special rule dispensation, as far as I can tell, for evil geniuses that, as far as I can tell, didn't exist previously and nobody else could access to this. For what reason? Has no one else ever had a breakdown or something? We don't know what's happened. Has no one else ever had mental health problems and maybe could have used it? What's going on? Also, no comment at all, like I said, about the sub situation. No comment about what this means about competitive integrity and does this mess up the playoffs and what's going on here. I've heard behind the scenes, only evil geniuses and Riot know what's going on with Danny. Nobody else does. Nobody else does. So nobody can actually judge, which is fucked up, whether these rules are fair or not to the other teams or even to actually the players in evil geniuses. Are they being treated the same way as everyone else? Now, remember, in the event of an emergency, prior to the scheduled start of a match, league officials will determine if an event qualifies as an emergency. That implies it is super serious. You cannot possibly play because that's if you can't arrive or find a sub. This is, I'm just not going to turn up no matter what. Oh, okay. Let's change the rules for you then. What? That's no judgment on him as opposed. That's judgment on LCS and the commissioner. What? That also, by the way, implies, despite all the market about, we're a family and how we treat people and we care about mental health and we've got the psych people and we're using the rookies but we're being careful with them, we're not going to play them too much or burn them out. Despite all that, EG staff, by the way, had no clue about this. They couldn't have predicted it. They either couldn't have predicted it because, due to their sub choices, especially their coaches, and putting a coach in one of the sub spots suggests they really didn't think anyone's going to sub, basically. Apparently only Inspired would sub. The MVP of the league, okay. That seems a bit weird too, right? Now, competitive integrity is a word I love, so I'm going to bring it up here. It's a big word, by the way. Let me just make something clear. I always say this when people complain about bad rules. There's rules I don't like. I would never ask for them to be changed in the moment. You know why? Because rules cannot be changed during a tournament. It is absurd you could play earlier matches with certain rules, change the rules, and then play different ones. For a start, if anyone limited, what the hell? You can do that. Why couldn't I? That's absurd. You've ruined the competitive entirely of this split. Now, if EG loses, in theory, you might not have totally, but you opened the door for it. And by the way, Lord forbid somehow EG wins this split and the Cowrie guy's the reason why carries and they're not because if that happens, I think this is a blight. This is a black mark on the LCS, the commissioners and the rule sets and Riot, quite frankly. It feels to me like they cheated the LCS if anything like that happens. So let's get into that a bit later, but let's just talk about this quickly. You might alter the rules next time. That's the logical way to do it once the tournament ends and then you have a chance to assess them and make the brand new set for the next time. That might even be something to point out here. Maybe this is a good example that there should be a possibility to have some sort of emergency sub for each role, but you have to say at the beginning of the playoffs. Yeah, that might even be something that would make sense. Again, it'd be tricky to do so people can't refuse it. And I will say, by the way, I actually do think this is a thing that needs to be said. Just feeling sorry for the person ain't enough to be able to change rules and break competitive integrity. I'm sorry. I don't care what happened. That does not mean that you can just go, well, I'm a good person, TM, and anyone saying otherwise is bad. No, that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. And that sounds like some really weird deflecting behaviour, doesn't it? This also, and this is a key thing, it's not that they have done the cheating, or that necessarily are in the case of EG, but it sets a precedent that opens a loophole where people could cheat. Because it sets a precedent that anyone can use mental health. Just say the words mental health, and then I don't know how they evaluate. The problem is we don't know. They don't even tell us that, what they did. So as a result, we don't even really know what you have to do. Is this like when you used to go in California and get a weed license, and they wanted to give you it because it cost money anyway, and the doctor was pro-weed. So if you said anything, I feel anxious. Oh, well, I've got something for that. I'm having trouble sleeping. Yeah, I bet. Oh, my joints hurt. Yeah, I've got something for that. I haven't got any joints. Yeah, I can get you some of that. You get the point. They were just going to give you it, weren't they, on almost any reasons. I'm worried this could be a similar case. What's going on here? Now, we'll not just get, this is key to say, it's not just that you get to sub your real sub, but then you can also select someone else from that role. What? You see what I mean? The strategical angle is why this is really dodgy. Because presumably, the reason why the sub rule exists is because they don't want you to upgrade a player or change the one on. I don't want that somebody, man. I want a different guy. Even worse, what if a player's slumping? No, I get a different player in from the same position. He's just playing bad. Different player from the same position. He's nervous. It's different player from the same position. Now, I'm not suggesting that is what EG would do or wanted to do here, but it opens up a world where someone else who's a scumbag. You know when people go, believe all women? No, because some women lie. Women are humans and humans lie. Some. They can't always be trusted. In the same sense, is every single coach, player, team and league operator always truthful? Of course not. So we have to ask questions here. If you open the door for cheating and competitive integrity to be broken and violated, then someone will use that loophole, will go through that door and they will abuse it and they might even get big results out of it. So let's get into this. People are going to say, well, it's not like he comes from another place. Cowrie was already on EG Academy this year, so it's fine. And theoretically, he's a worse player from a lower level. And this is because of Danny being unwell, not because they want a better team with Cowrie somehow. Well, we'll come back to that, okay? Because it's a bit complicated. You know, something that could make someone feel super stressed. I want to put this out there. For the future, for loopholes. I'll tell you what could make you feel really stressed. What if you were slumping individually? What if you were slumping individually and you couldn't play the meta anymore? I'd be really pressed. And you're a rookie. Oh man, that'd be killing me. And you're a reigning champion, the pressure to repeat. And then you feel like you're letting the team down because they actually played around you and funneled gold through you all the time. And then you know, even, by the way, this is even more stress. What if I know that the subs aren't even ADCs if I leave? Oh, it's going to be worse. I'll let everyone down. I've ruined everything. Now, listen, that plea even might make right. No, we'll make an emergency rule. That's the problem. You could see a world where the conditions to be considered having mental health crisis and problems can sometimes align with the very tough situations that pro players might be put into, and we don't always know what their internal landscape is. Spoiler, I've heard of Koreans who just had wig outs backstage at like giant tournaments, like Worlds between games and stuff, and just screaming. I won't go into who and all the rest of it, but I've heard of people where the pressure just got to them. I've heard of people who are just mentally broken by a loss. People who just sat in a chair at the hotel just looking at a wall for 3 hours, like, what have I done? Oh, I can't ever play, I've let my country down. Oh, there's a lot of stress involved in gaming, and it's not as simple as go, well, it shouldn't be any, or if you feel anyone, everyone quickly hop out. No, the game couldn't actually operate if everyone would do that. If everyone just, as soon as they felt a problem, had to dodge, I don't think it can actually work as a game. Now, the reason why I also suggest this could become more prevalent is because actually we have a similar precedent being set in CSGO, but it's just you don't need the actual rules from the league. So there was a team called Astralis, one of the greatest teams ever, who were mega burned out. And so Glaive and Zipnix just forced their way out through sick notes and contractually and got 3 months off each or whatever. Maybe a bit less. I think Glaive was a bit less than Zipnix. And then Device, their teammate later in a different team, has now had about 10 months off. And they're all just citing like burnout, mental health. Devices, he just keeps saying mental health. And then every few months, it's like, is there anything going to happen? It's just mental health. And we get no info. We never out info. And no one knows what's going on here. Like, why aren't these players playing? Why would players sit out like that? What even is their condition? No one knows. We just have to hear the words mental health and you can't question it. Every other possible injury, ailment, you can do all sorts of physical tests. You can scientifically, you can't. I mean, listen, it depends what you think of certain fields, but you can't really ironclad know that how the person's feeling, right? It just doesn't work that way. Now, the significance of that precedent is really, really important. Whenever something is really difficult to verify or prove, you open a loophole to abuse. Like, what if there's a team who already had used their subs, but they had them in the other roles, but they want to upgrade a role for a player they don't have? Doesn't even take anything other than the team maybe lying. Maybe the player just, yeah, I'm nervous. Oh, I guess I do have problems with sleeping. Oh, I've thought about my mum and I know I'm playing bad. Yeah, I might let the team down. And then the team, I need is the time off. You don't know how stressed a piece of shit could do that. There's been pieces of shit in the LCS. There's been Reginald. There's been a whole bunch of people, right? A whole bunch of really bad actors, really horrible people, liars, scumbags, people who cheat people who steal, people who sexually assault people. If you don't know these things, you don't know these things. So the problem is, in that scenario, people could lie, people could fake it, right? There's a lot on the line here. There's worlds on the line. There's championships on the line. Remember, it might not have to be this match in the playoffs. It doesn't matter if you don't think they would. It matters if someone could. That's like a great line right there. I should write that down. That's like a Sesame Street line for Thorin. Imagine a world, by the way, where you had some old player who used to be a stub, could be a double lift, and he's just, or sneaky, he's just messing around on your academy team as an ADC, and you legit want to put him into your main team over your starter ADC, because maybe the starter ADC is playing bad, maybe you want to swap up and play like a different side of the map, you want to play to bot, maybe use a supportive ADC, a weak sider, like a Kazi or something. Who knows what reason from? Maybe the meta's changed, maybe there's poor performance from one, maybe the guy in Academy's just popped off to his old level, you want to have him back in, right? Now imagine, even worse than that, someone makes a whole academy of players like that, and their whole purpose, very cynically, is they're going to pick which player they need to, and they're going to do that once or twice if they have to. By the way, if you can do it once, why couldn't you do it twice in the playoffs? You might go, well, that would beg it, but no, why would it? You're saying it's something that's essentially like very sketchy. We don't really know what's going on. You made these claims that you were believed. Why can't two people do that? I mean, it's not like they can only have so much mental health to go around one team. No, that's not how it works. In theory, everyone can have it, right? The whole team. Do you just get the entire squad? Do you just put your whole academy team in? What's going on here? So I think this is already, something's not jiving with me. Are you getting the same vibe? So then consider this. You might only have to do a cheat like that one time, and you could go to Worlds. You could win the LCS. Who knows, right? My mate Lurpis, Tommy Kovacevicd from Immortals Gaming Club / over in CSGO once made a great point years ago about how pros could cheat in CS and get away with it every time. His point was during setup, you're supposed to have like 10 minutes. If they come over and go, right, start the game now, you just say to them, I'm having problems with my mouse. It doesn't feel right. I think there's acceleration somewhere. The sensitivity is too fast. Right? It's not like they can go, well, let me have a go. You're lying. They don't know. They don't know what your mouse feels like. They don't know what it should be set up like. So it just became a way, spoiler, there were certain players in an Eastern European team that definitely were doing this a lot. I saw them do it many times. They were just doing it to get extra time to talk, extra time to warm up over the other team, like time to look something up online with the guy that goes out, alt tab out quick. They were doing all sorts of shady shit because it couldn't be verified. It was a subjective judgment, wasn't it? So in this case, right, how much nerves, pressure, emotional pain should someone feel when they're competing for a continental championship on stage as a rookie and in front of thousands of baying fans? Wouldn't someone say, because we don't know what the case is, if that's I just was nervous, I was having, isn't that sort of an industrial hazard of the job of trying to be on a championship team? That doesn't mean this excuse it. Also, you should never say, oh, it's just saying, I feel like these things also will go hand in hand with it, right? So if we make the loophole too easy to access or too broad or too sinister this way, I think people are going to do it. And sadly, more people than you think are going to do it, I'm afraid, and they're going to get away with it. So I'll just say it outright. It seems to me like Riot changed this rule just to apply to the playoffs for evil geniuses. That's why there's no mention in the playoff area. There's no special thing about playoff just special. But here's the problem, and this is where it also gets a bit dodgy on the EG side, right? Again, I'm not suggesting that they are putting someone in, but like, how can you realistically, especially after you've bragged about Danny all year long, how could it ever be that if you swapped in your academy players as an emergency sub that in theory you don't want to have to put in, you might actually be better, or he's a better choice? That's something about that's off. Remember what Jack said earlier? They were severely limited by Danny's champion picks and were playing through mid and top, despite Impact, by the way, this is my point, being a legendary weak side carry, even in LCS. So here's the issue. It's not that I know Cowrie is a better, or necessarily a better ADC than Danny. I don't if he's a better player. But his champion pool is way better. Theoretically. He plays Zeri, Aphelios, Ezreal, Kalista, Lucian, Sivir, Draven, everything. Everything you would need in this meta. Arguably, we don't know yet at the LCS level, his champion pool on paper is the best of the three remaining bot laners. The other two were amazing bot laners. And way better than Danny's. Absurdly better than Danny's. Now let's also quickly just look. What did Peter Dunn say when he announced Cowrie was going to be playing? Cowrie has grinded hard this entire year through Champions Queue and Academy / Proving Ground circuit. He has consistently performed as a top prospect outside the LCS and has a strong history back in Turkey. Looking forward to watching him take the stage. Even he's picking it up. He's not being like, well, we'll do what we can. Don't place expectations to it. He's going like, listen, mate, this guy's experienced player. He's one of the top in Academy. So, come on, man. This is where I'm starting to feel a bit, it just feels wrong, doesn't it? Something feels off. So let's talk about this. It seems like this actually gives them a chance to win the LCS. That's higher. I think just gives them a chance. I think they would have, that's all I think they would have got draft gap. Let's be real. Jojo was a rookie in spring and they won the whole thing. That established the precedence that a rookie can win if you're just good. I think though, let's be real, it would be so whack if EG now beats 100 Thieves and or Cloud9. Like I say, God forbid they win LCS and Cowrie carries in as the MVP. By the way, Thank fuck he doesn't have to play against Hans Sama, and this wasn't around earlier, because he would have had a draft edge against Hans Sama. That would really make me feel like, what's going on here? That was why that was such a dodgy series with the bot lane picks. In spirit, the spirit of a sub is that you don't want to do it, and it's not going to make you better and give you a better player or better chance strategically in the game, especially when he isn't your real sub. It's one thing if they were super 500 IQ and they'd already planned a different style of like top or like bot lane, depending off the meta. That would be genius. Instead, they were putting coaches in the player spots and just abusing that. We'd have another man backstage. I speculate. So stuff like this, you might go, because people love to say this, but the other teams and players all agree. I don't give a fuck. They aren't the LCS commission. They don't make the rules. If they go, you know what, actually, we're just going to play a best of three. We both agreed. Actually, you know what, we're going to only play with 3 bands here. Actually, you know what, we're going to actually disable Zeri and just play without. You can't do it. Players and teams don't get to decide the rules. This isn't a picnic. This isn't some sort of like family outing. This is a professional competition. Riot and the LCS commissioner decide the rules, and there should be almost no input from those other people. They can maybe state their case or explain if someone's injured, but it's up to Riot to decide. There shouldn't even be rule suggestions from players, in my opinion. Now let's quickly touch on the mental health topic, because what's funny is you're all going to go, oh mate, this is going to be wild. No, it isn't, because here's the thing. If you actually knew me and you'd watched any of my content, you'd know that when it comes to health and mental health, that's a topic I don't actually like to speculate. I don't really think journalists should really do it, especially not of like whether it's bad enough, because that's the issue. I've seen loads of fans do it, and even very vocal ones have criticised Danny or suggested he isn't quite out for the job, like this about being an ADC. That's the difference between a fan and a professional. A fan, they can just say whatever they want, right? They have no consequences. The problem is, as a professional, you can't know the circumstances, and I haven't got any secret info. I haven't heard that it's dodgy or anything. I'm just saying we haven't had any info, and I don't like the way this is set up. Because here's the issue, let's be real. You could go many different ways. It could be something simple. He feels nervous. And by the way, wouldn't that make you think something differently? But then again, what if he was like something horrible, like suicidal or family emergency? I mean, people will cite the Doublelift story. Yeah, that'd be great. By the way, the Doublelift story all came out, it was in the news, and he even said later on why he did it, and he actually himself tweeted out the news that it had happened and said that it was brother. Listen, he was a mega veteran, a professional, was older, different relationship maybe, I don't know, but the point is, people are going to cite that case, right, and they're going to get upset or think it's as bad. No one knows what happened. And then let's just quickly point this out as well, right? This is a thing I have to point out towards the end. It's not like there's no history of Riot seemingly getting a bit sketchy with the rules and using a subjective judgment to maybe put a team in a position they wanted them to be in or make them more competitive. You remember Team Liquid back in Season 7 when Doublelift sat out the spring split when he was on TSM and they won with Wild Turtle? And at the end of that split, Team Liquid was going to be relegated. They were in a really bad spot. And so Steve went to his old mate Reggie and said, can I borrow Doublelift? Can I loan him, basically? He's your player, but can I loan him? I assume I'll pay a salary or whatever, I'll pay you an amount or whatever. Now, here's the thing. I've asked some people, it's not something I've looked into heavily, so I'm not going to make this a massive part of the video. Basically, as far as I can tell, if you come and again, you have to do some sort of like, that wouldn't even be an emergency. That'd be like an emergency transfer or something. But how can, well, I need a player because I'm shit and I'm going to go out the league and I'm one of the big 3, the kings of LCS, or the big 4 back then when CLG was super relevant. This is the problem I have with that. Again, as far as I know, it's Riot who decides, am I going to allow this emergency, this late season stuff? Will I allow it? Now, if you look at the fact that they were a team dropping out, Doublelift at that time is one of the GOATs to the LCS, won LCS loads of times already, and he's maybe the best player ever, NA from the LCS. The idea you let him go to another, he's not an import even, you let him go to another team who were big once for loads of money, who fucked up the split, and he goes and helps them, saves them staying in the LCS before franchising this was. That's fucking whack. That story's, by the way, not connected to the thing earlier when he was in 100, when he was in TL against 100 Thieves with his family. This is where he was just like a good player and he'd come back again and he helped keep them in. That looks like Reggie, the LCS, just wanted, and the commissioner wanted to just keep Team Liquid in the LCS. How corrupt is that? So it's not like there's no precedence for any of this stuff, is there? And that, finally, let's suggest one last little thing, shall we? Because if you're going to go on about mental health, you're going to go on and on about this aspect, and you're going to say we care so much about it, like it's really important that people don't speculate or say crazy things or affect people's mind states. Please don't trash talk them or say something horrible to them. We really care about mental health. then why are people in the Evil Geniuses organisation seeing comments like, well, why are you bragging about the players being rookies being better than veterans, and then deciding, let's fuck with that guy, let's annoy him to get blocked, let's harass him, not in the colloquial sense of like pestering him, not like sexual harassment or something, let's harass him until he blocks us, let's say things that hurt his feelings, let's fuck with this guy, let's as a mob all attack this guy. That sounds like something that people who don't care about mental health would do. That sounds like people who don't give a shit what someone else's mental condition is. That sounds like horrible people behaviour, isn't it? So let's just have a look at this. This guy is called Evil John, E.G. John the Whore. He just gets my thing and just goes, L take. Now, here's what's weird, right? When I looked it up, he's like a social media guy or something for EG. And I look, here's why they do it, guys. 1,000 likes. And then 58 comments. And do you imagine, you can go look up the thread up yourself if you want. If you go and look, when I like block him, because why would I want to interact with this behaviour? There's then a thread, and over, people from his thread and his mutuals, and maybe even people from Discords he might be in, come one by one to say whatever offensive thing. They even compare notes, like, I didn't get blocked for that. What did you say? Nah, I said something about his mum and fucked him to death. Oh, I'll go and do that. They do that, and then they get the block thing, and then they come back, and they all did it in a massive post, and he's liking all these tweets and stuff, and going, oh, I love it, and replying like, yeah, what an idiot and a loser. This is a guy who works for EG. What is your org? You're a family, right? You care about each other. Fuck you. Fuck your org. That's what I say. So then let's keep going, shall we? Because it didn't stop there. This is fucking amazing, guys. Are you ready? This guy here replies to the thing about being blocked, right? Because remember, this other idiot's loving it. Look, the guy up here is going, let's go! I'm esports certified. By the way, he's encouraging me. If you want to be certified in esports, you have to harass me until I block you. You have to fuck with my mental health. That's who Evil Geniuses, the org, is. This is their ethos. This is who they hire. This is who represents them. This is who does it with their name up there. And here's who replies. Other people from their org. Their org's getting in on it. I had to block loads of their org. I don't know any of these people. I've never spoken to a single one. Don't know a single one of these from Adam, mate. But they all hate me because they're mentally ill. So let's go here. E.g. Tyler Quaha, say Mr. TQ, says, there's value in me being able to see his nonsense. Otherwise, I would have gotten blocked right with you. Now, who's this guy? E.g. John, what? E.g. TQ. Okay, so at the time, he was even following me, right? Oh, a guy follows me. He's just going to fuck with my mental health. So he even knows a little bit about me and how I talk. He's just going to try and say something horrible to me. Let's just look at who he is, shall we? What does he do for E.g.? Director, people partner. You aren't a people person, mate. You're a piece of shit. You don't know what a person is. Apparently, unless they have a jersey on and are paid by your bosses to play in your team, you don't consider other people human beings. You don't consider them to have feelings. You don't consider them to have an attention span or to maybe get overwhelmed if loads of people start spamming them all the time. You don't care, do you, mate? Your people partner person would probably just laugh if someone committed suicide. You go, lol, L life. Oh, you probably love it, right? Wouldn't that be the shit? This is who EG is, by the way, guys. And then their org's going to go, but you can't speculate about us and you can't say anything about us. You know what? It is fucked up what happened with Danny. I certainly hope it's nothing serious. I hope he's back next split. He seems like one of the more, I'd say, like, improved prospects to come in LCS. The way he's played with his coaches suggests he doesn't even have a big ego. I think he can be caught. It seems like he is a player for the future. I don't know if he's a champion. It looks to me like he'd maybe on the third or fourth best team for most of his career, if I had to guess. But certainly he looks like a player who should be in the LCS. Amazing pickup by EG. They have protected him. They have looked after him. Something happened because maybe they messed with the loophole with the rules. I think LCS actually might have just gone mad dodgy. So are Evil Geniuses and Riot cheating the LCS? I think Riot is. Yeah, I just straight up do think they are. Are Evil Geniuses? Only in the sense that they were sort of being a little bit cute with the loophole with the coach. I'm not a fan of that. And I don't think they intentionally had Calvary there, like sinister, or as soon as Danny goes off, tell Danny to get... No, they weren't doing that. I actually think that this is a good faith move. I trust people like Peter Dunn and Empire. I think Peter Dunn seems like quite a moral person, very honest person. I don't think he would actually lie in this sense. I think he'd even come forwards and do a mea culpa if he'd messed up and you didn't have a sub there, and they wouldn't be given the spot and say, I'm really sorry, like I'm afraid like Tommy O's going to have to play, this is my fault, I should have thought... He's that kind of guy, so I don't think he would. I don't know about EG higher-ups. I certainly look at some of the lower down people, they seem like absolute scum in that org. They live evil in the wrong way, and then I do think that the owner's just full of... The CEO is just full of shite and just said nothing of value, and the LCS Commission, I think, has done a really poor job. I think that's really whack the way that's gone in that sense. And there's no official statement, no explanation, not even addressing the subs. I do think that's mad dodgy. I do think Riot is cheating the LCS and the other teams that are playing in the playoffs. This video was kindly supported by Kill Your Inner Loser, Ahmed Hadjou, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Paul Villa, Travis Goff, Adam Ochs, Animosity, Bot Pounder 420, Hades, Jensen Goh, Kovacevicd, Pacy, Tobias Bernasconi, Tosh, Torin, and as always, special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my shows? Would you like to ask a question in my Patreon AMA? Maybe you want teasers, find out who the next Reflections guests are or upcoming talk show guests. Do you want to take part in one of those long donated discussions with me? Well, if any of the above or more sound interesting to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Illuminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.